First published in 1984, The Cry of the Kalahari is an autobiography on the pioneering research that Mark and Delia Owens conducted on the wildlife of the Kalahari in Botswana during the mid-1970s. This book is an emotional rollercoaster, and once I picked it up on recommendation from my sister, I just couldn't put it down. It is truly inspirational for all. A journey of patience, determination, guile, fortitude, resoluteness, courage, bravery, sadness, horror, disdain, anger, peace, uncertainty. I could go on endlessly. You may have watched documentaries by Sir David Attenborough or be aware of the amazing conservation work of Jane Goodall, but this 7-year journey of Mark and Delia Owens not only represents them as zoologists and researchers, but shows their concern and love for the environment and the species inhabiting our world. The year is 1974 and Mark and Delia arrive in Botswana ready to start their journey with only $7,000 in their pocket, which is the equivalent of about $40,000 in today's money. That's about the average yearly salary in the 1970s. It took them 3 years in which they both scraped to say working 2 jobs and selling all their worldly possessions to make this research expedition a reality. Financing the trip was an ongoing battle throughout their eventual 7-year stay in the Kalahari. When they first arrived, they ended up working in Gaborone for several months before making their way up to Maun. It was to become their go-to point for supplies before heading to Deception Valley in the central Kalahari Game Reserve. Throughout the book, it alternates between Mark and Delia's diaries, where they share their intimate insights into the relationships between animal and man, one to this day that continues to be fraught and fragile as they try and piece together better understanding on how animals thrive to live with limited resources while being on a shoestring budget. The primary study was centered around jackals, lions, and the endangered brown hyena. One of the most incredible stories is about a lion they aptly named Bones. Bound with a life-threatening leg injury, using their rudimentary skills, they conducted emergency surgery with whatever tools they had to save him. They would lose track of Bones for long periods of time, only for him to suddenly reappear to their, and mine, absolute delight. It turns out that lions have an incredible natural recovery system. For me, it was fascinating to find out about how brown hyenas such as Star, what a story that is, interacted socially with their kind as well as lions. Having travelled to the Ngorongoro crater myself, further east in Tanzania, I was struck by the balance in which animals live, rely and depend on each other. Reflecting on it, it almost feels like most humans are completely not in tune with the flora and fauna that exists on our planet. Living in the Kalahari, Mark and Delia would go months without seeing anyone else. It almost feels unreal. Just as their distress is increasing and their funding is running out, someone comes along and rescues the day. Starting first with a South African by the name of Bergie Berghofer, who is half British, half American, who found them in the middle of the desert and then started bringing supplies to them on and off on a regular basis. His story is an incredible one, and we'll leave it for you to find out more about what happened. Mark and Delia were able to develop their personal and social relationships with friends in Maun every time they went and visited. However, after spending long periods without seeing anyone in the Kalahari, they started to feel that those social relationships were beginning to break down. Mark and Delia are relentless in sending out applications to get grants from institutions in North America, in Europe, in South Africa. Over time, their persistence pays off and they start to get trickle of funds, which then adds up to lots of other things, including equipment that allows them to go out into the field and collect data in longer ranges. This equipment allowed them to go and explore the brown hyenas and find out exactly their movements as well as their social relationships and how they looked after their cubs. Their research has given us a greater understanding about the relationships between these very important animals in the Kalahari. Despite their challenges with funding, building relationships and tracking brown hyenas and lions with their limited capacity, Mark and Delia face an incredibly harsh climate and extreme weather events together, often bearing extreme heat or alternating their study patterns to continue working on their research. The threat of fires, drought, but also the impacts of human encroachment and restriction had an impact not only on their scientific studies, but also their social and emotional well-being. Fencing created by a handful of cattle ranchers restricted the flow of migrant wildebeest trying to find water during times of drought, and resulting in unfathomable amount of death and extreme distress among their populations, and of course untold impacts on their habitats. Their experiences would make them one of the biggest voices for animals of the Kalahari, writing and pleading with local, national and international actors to intervene. Things would be made worse by incoming mining prospectors looking to find untold riches in the vast and pristine land. Humans are by default meaning-making machines. What's the point of all this? Whatever you define this to be? This is something that you may have asked yourself in different settings. Through reading this book, you'll be struck by the balance that the animal kingdom walks in sharp contrast to how humans interact and consume from this one precious and wonderful earth. Mark and Delia's commitment and love for what they do is truly inspiring, coming from modest beginnings to living on the edge for the love of knowledge. I'm so grateful to have been recommended this book and humbled by Mark and Delia sharing their journey. I think the Queen of Conservation, Jane Goodall, said, "For anyone interested in animals or in real-life adventure, this book is a must." I couldn't have said it better. If you would like to find out more about the book, check out Delia's website here, where you'll find out more about her as well as her internationally best-selling non-fiction books too. If you struggle reading, have you tried listening to books? There are quite a few platforms out there which you can do this on. I find listening to books, particularly ones narrated by authors, gives you a much more immersive experience. This book is incredible to listen to wherever you might be, travelling by train, plane, yacht or car.